Part 4. Chapter 19, The Begging. It was nearly midnight when my phone rang. I knew who it was before I even picked it up. The name flashing across the screen didn't surprise me, Alyssa. I almost let it go to voicemail. I should have. But a part of me, curiosity, maybe, or some residual thread of sibling obligation I hadn't fully severed, reached out and pressed accept. There was silence on the line for a few seconds. Then a sound I hadn't heard in years, her voice, thick and small. "Hey," she whispered. "It's me." I didn't say anything. And that must have been enough to make her crumble. Because just like that, she broke. The tears came hard and fast, her breath hitching through the speaker in short, panicked gasps. I didn't know who else to call, she sobbed. I tried Mom and Dad again, but they won't even let me in the house. They said I embarrassed them. They said they gave me everything and I wasted it. My jaw clenched. I waited. "I know I messed up," she choked out. "I know I hurt you. I was selfish. I didn't mean to be. I just thought." She didn't finish that sentence. I knew what she thought. She thought the money was hers. She thought the love was guaranteed. She thought she'd always land on her feet because someone else would be there to catch her. And now, no one was. I've been staying with a friend of Alex's, but she's weird about me being there. Like she's keeping tabs or something. I can't sleep. I can't breathe. I haven't eaten a real meal in 3 days. Please. Her voice cracked again. Then came the plea. Can I stay with you? Just for a while. Just until I figure something out. I said nothing. I listened to her sobs fill the space between us. I heard the trembling desperation, the soft panic that came from someone who had never faced consequences before, who had never been told no and meant it. Then she added the words that made my stomach twist. Mom and Dad said you could help. They said you're doing so well now. That you'd understand. That you're good at this kind of thing. There it was. The expectation. The old script. The role they were trying to shove me back into. Caretaker. Fixer. The responsible one who would step in and pick up the mess. She still didn't see me as a person. She saw me as a solution. My hands shook, not with sympathy, but with fury. Because even now, after everything, they still thought I owed them something. That my success wasn't mine, but a resource for them to mine when their plans collapsed. They had gutted me for her wedding. Now they wanted to gut me again for her divorce. I'm not trying to take advantage, Alyssa said quickly, sensing my silence. I swear. I don't know where else to go. And you're my sister. That word. Sister. She hadn't used it when she uninvited me from the wedding. She hadn't used it when she smiled for photos in the castle built on the ashes of my future. She hadn't used it when she watched me disappear from the family like a stain they'd wiped clean. Now, suddenly, I was her sister again, when she had nothing, when she was broken, when everyone else had walked away. And it was that word that made everything inside me go still. Because I realized, in that moment, that being someone's sister doesn't mean anything if it only applies when they are in need. If it only activates when they're scared. If it only exists as a lever to be pulled in a crisis. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said finally, my voice calm. Cold. She sniffled. Does that mean? No, I said. It means I have compassion for what you're feeling. but I'm not your safety net. She went quiet. Please don't make the mistake of confusing my survival with generosity. What I built after being abandoned. I don't owe you access to it. But you have so much now, she whispered, incredulous. You're doing so well. I let that hang in the air. Yes. I am, I said. Because I stopped giving to people who only take. She sobbed again, but I didn't bend. I didn't soften. I didn't fill the silence with comfort. And when she realized I meant it, really meant it, she said nothing else. Just a final, hollow, okay, and the call ended. I set my phone down. My hands still shook. Not from guilt. Not from sadness. But from the finality of it. She had begged. And I had said no. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was relief. Because finally, after years of being exploited, dismissed, and erased, I had chosen myself. And no matter what came next, I wouldn't go back. Chapter 20, Their Nerve. I thought saying no to Alyssa would be the hard part. It wasn't. The hard part came after, when the people who taught me how to swallow my needs and label it love tried to drag me back into the old script. It started 2 days after that midnight call. I was at work when my email pinged. The subject line, family emergency, please read. It was from my mother. Not her usual address, the one I'd blocked years ago, but a new one that used her maiden name, like she thought she could slip past my filters by pretending to be someone else. I hovered over it for several minutes before opening it. The body of the email was short. Clipped. No greeting. No apology. We heard Alyssa reached out. She's in a difficult situation. Whatever happened between you two in the past, now is not the time to hold grudges. We're family. Please forgive and help her get back on her feet. That was it. No acknowledgement of the theft. No recognition of the years I spent clawing out of debt while they planned her fairy tale wedding with my college fund. No mention of cutting me out of their lives until my success became useful. Just a directive, help your sister. I closed the email without responding. A few hours later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked it on break, I heard my dad's voice, steady, forced, performative. Hey, kiddo. Haven't heard from you in a long time. Listen, we're going through a rough patch with your sister. She made some mistakes, but she's still family. We need to pull together right now. If you could help her out, it doesn't have to be forever, just until she lands somewhere safe. His voice dropped, like he was confiding something intimate. You're doing well now. We're proud of you. We always knew you'd be fine. That's why we didn't worry so much back then. You're resilient. She's not. She needs you. There it was. The whole playbook in one message. Rewrite the past. Flatten the betrayal into misunderstandings. Elevate their favoritism to parental strategy. Assign me the role of savior because I had proven I could survive abuse. And then the sentence, the one that made my jaw lock so hard I thought a tooth might crack. We're family. They said it like a spell that should override history. I replayed that voicemail 3 times. Not because I was moved, but because I wanted to hear the exact moment his voice tightened when he approached the ask. Because even now, I don't think he believed his own story. He just needed it to be true enough that I'd submit. More messages came in waves over the next few days. Some direct, some triangulated through relatives. My mother again, you don't have to forgive us. Just help your sister. A forwarded text from Aunt Margie, they're all stressed. Maybe just let Alyssa stay a week. She says you have space. A Facebook DM from a cousin I barely knew, your sis is crashing on couches. You good? Funny. No one asked if I was good when I was fainting in a hospital because I couldn't afford groceries. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I printed my mother's email. I printed the voicemail transcription. I laid them out on my kitchen table alongside an old photocopy of the trust summary my grandparents' lawyer sent when I was a kid, the one that confirmed the education fund existed, was intended exclusively for my tuition, and could only be accessed by my parents as custodians. Custodians. Not owners. And they drained it. 4 flowers. 4 fireworks. 4 linen napkins monogrammed with initials that now belonged to a man who had walked out and taken the silverware. I stared at those pages until my eyes blurred. And slowly, something inside me, something I had been rebuilding piece by piece, locked into place. Boundaries are easy to talk about when no one is pushing them. They are forged when the pressure comes. My parents weren't reaching out in love. They were reaching out in need, their need. Their shame. Their fear. Their desire to outsource consequences. They wanted access to my stability without facing what they had done to build theirs on my back. So I wrote one reply. Just one. To both of them. No greetings. No pleasantries. No thread they could pull. I am not available to provide housing, money, or logistical support to Alyssa. You made choices. So did she. You will have to address the consequences together. Please do not contact me again about this. I attached a PDF copy of the trust summary. Highlighted the clause naming me as beneficiary. Highlighted the custodial responsibility language. No commentary. Just the document. Then I hit send. Within minutes, my mother replied. This is spiteful. We did what we thought was best. Stop living in the past. I didn't answer. My dad tried once more the next day. You're punishing your sister for something that wasn't her fault. I didn't answer that either. Because it was her fault. Not the theft, that was on them. But the entitlement. The erasure. The smugness that let her uninvite me and spend what wasn't hers. That was fully, freely hers. And if she didn't know better then, she did now. The calls tapered. The emails slowed. The guilt drips dried up when they realized I wasn't taking the bait. And in that quiet, blistering aftermath, a new layer of truth settled over everything. They had never been protecting her. They had been protecting the illusion that their choices were loving. And my refusal to enable them was the first real act of love I'd ever shown, to myself. Chapter 21, Flashbacks. After I sent that final email, the one with the trust documents and the line in the sand, I expected to feel triumphant. I didn't. What I felt was heavier. Stranger. Not guilt exactly, but a silence inside me that throbbed like a bruise. It was quiet now. No more calls. No new messages. A stillness had settled, but it wasn't peace. Not yet. It was memory. Because that's what happened in the quiet, the flashbacks came. They didn't arrive as full scenes. Not at first. They came in pieces. Moments. Glimpses. Like postcards from someone else's life. Someone younger. Hungrier. More naive. I saw myself, 17 and hopeful, standing in our old kitchen with a college acceptance letter in one hand and a chipped mug of reheated coffee in the other. My mother's voice echoing, "We're so proud of you, sweetie. But college is expensive. We'll help how we can, but don't get your hopes up." At the time, I nodded. Smiled even. I thought they meant help how we can because there was nothing to give. Now I knew they meant it because they were already spending it elsewhere. Another flash. I saw myself behind the diner counter, scrubbing ketchup from the edge of a cracked menu. My hands were raw from overwork. My manager barked something about table 4, but I didn't hear it. Because that night, I was thinking about the paper I hadn't finished. The class I might fail. The energy I didn't have. And how, despite all of it, I still told myself, this is what grown-ups do. You suffer. You survive. Cut to another moment, weeks later. My hospital bracelet. The 4 taped to my arm. The nurse's pitying look as she handed me a dry granola bar because she knew I hadn't eaten. I had passed out in the back alley behind the diner that day. And while I lay in a hospital bed with a heart rate dangerously low, they were picking out wine glasses for Alice's wedding. Touring castles. Choosing between cream and ivory for linens. Hiring someone to choreograph the first dance. Another memory burned its way to the surface. That Facebook post. The announcement. The carefully filtered photos of Alice beaming in her designer dress. My parents beside her, glowing. Toasting. No one had told me. No one had invited me. They had deleted me from the story and replaced me with glitter and captions. Our family is so blessed. I wasn't even worth the cost of an invitation. And now here they were, broken, humiliated, exposed, and they wanted me to stitch it all back together like I hadn't spent years bleeding under their scissors. The images kept coming. My mother folding fabric swatches and calling it church stuff. My father shrugging, "You'll figure it out, you always do." Alice rolling her eyes when I asked about the venue. "Why are you always so negative?" And the one that haunted me most, my aunt, drunk at the barbecue, grinning as she slurred. "At least the college fund went to good use, huh?" That sentence had shattered a version of me. The dutiful one. The quiet one. The daughter who waited for love she would never receive. I leaned against my apartment wall and slid to the floor, the memories still flooding in. But this time, I didn't cry. I let them come. Every lie. Every dismissal. Every stolen moment. I let the weight of it all settle over me, not to break me again, but to remind me of exactly why I said no. Because sometimes, people will hurt you deeply and still expect you to save them when their world falls apart. Because sometimes, the ones who break you will say, "We're family," like it's a magic word that erases the blood on their hands. But I remembered. I remembered everything. And that memory. It was my armor. It reminded me that I didn't just walk away. I survived being erased. And now they wanted me to pretend none of it happened. No. Not after the jobs. Not after the hunger. Not after the wedding that cost me my future and gave her a temporary fantasy. They handed Alice my life wrapped in gold and silk. She wore it like a gown. And when it fell apart, they expected me to be the tailor. But I wasn't stitching anything for anyone anymore. Chapter 22, The Decision. It took me 3 days to write one sentence. Not because I didn't know what to say. I knew exactly what I wanted to say. It had lived inside me for years, growing in the silence, sharpening with every sleepless night, every unreturned call, every memory of being second, forgotten, erased. But I waited. Because I didn't want the words to come from anger. Not this time. I didn't want to speak like a wounded child. I wanted to answer as the woman I had become. The woman who rebuilt her life from ashes they pretended weren't even smoldering. I waited until my hands were steady. Until the knot in my chest had loosened just enough to let air in. Until I could reread every message Alyssa and my parents had sent me and not flinch. And when the moment came, when the air was still and the guilt had faded into clarity, I sat down, opened the last unread message from Alyssa, and clicked reply. There was no long monologue. No rehashing. No explanation. Just one sentence. You already got my future once. This time, I'm keeping it. That was it. No greeting. No signature. I stared at the words for a moment, not because I doubted them, but because they felt complete. Clean. True. They held everything that needed to be said. The theft of my college fund. The hospital room. The exclusion from her wedding. The way they turned my loyalty into currency for her fairy tale, and then expected me to foot the bill for her nightmare. They got my future once. When I was young. When I still believed that love was something you earned with obedience and sacrifice. When I still believed that being the strong one would eventually be rewarded. But strength, I'd learned, was not a deposit in the family bank. It was a reason for them to keep withdrawing, until there was nothing left but debt. This time, I was keeping it. My future. My peace. My space. My energy. My money. My time. They weren't mine because someone handed them to me. They were mine because I clawed for them. Worked for them. Bled for them. Alone. And no amount of tears or apologies or weird family speeches could change that truth. I hit send. Then I leaned back in my chair, exhaled, and felt something shift. Not a burst of joy. Not even relief. Just stillness. A line drawn. A gate closed. A boundary sealed with the quiet, defiant grace of someone who has nothing left to prove. I never checked to see if she responded. I didn't care if she did. Because for once in my life, I hadn't spoken for her, or for them. I had spoken for me. And what I said was final. Chapter 23, Radio Silence. After I sent the message, just that single, carefully weighted sentence, I turned off my phone. Not out of fear. Not to avoid their response. But because I didn't need one. I had said what I came to say. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sitting in the wreckage of a conversation hoping someone would come clean it up. I wasn't waiting for someone to understand. I wasn't waiting for them to choose me. That part was over. Still, the next morning, I woke with a strange sensation in my chest. A sort of ache, not sadness, exactly, but something like muscle soreness. The lingering pain of having carried too much for too long. I checked my phone out of habit. Nothing. No texts. No missed calls. No desperate voicemails from my mother. No manipulative follow-ups from my dad. No new tears from Alyssa. Just silence. It continued for hours. Then days. At first, it felt unnatural, like the calm after a storm that had raged so long you started to believe it was weather. You wait for the next strike of thunder. You brace yourself for the wind to scream again. But it didn't. The noise was gone. And in its place, a stillness I hadn't known I needed. That silence, at first deafening, became something else. Freedom. No more pretending. No more being the bridge between chaos and comfort. No more decoding passive-aggressive texts or navigating the minefield of guilt. I began to notice small things. How much easier it was to breathe when I didn't wake up wondering if I was being watched, judged, or used. How quiet my thoughts were without their voices embedded inside them. How clean my apartment felt now that their presence, so often intangible but suffocating, had been fully removed. It was like walking out of a smoky room and realizing how badly you'd been choking. At work, I smiled more. Genuinely. I stopped flinching when I got email notifications, no longer expecting an emotional landmine. I played music while I cooked, just because I could. I redecorated my space, took down the old photos I used to keep tucked in frames out of obligation, family portraits where I'd always been slightly off to the side, just out of focus. I replaced them with art. With light. With things I chose. For the first time, my world reflected me. And without the weight of them pressing into every corner, I found there was more room in my life for possibility. For new friendships. For stillness. For laughter that wasn't polite or guarded. For ambition that wasn't tethered to survival. I felt lighter. Not just emotionally, but physically. My shoulders didn't slump the same way. I stood up straighter without realizing. Even my reflection in the mirror looked different, less tired, less tense, like I'd peeled off a layer of skin I never meant to wear. People think silence is empty. But I learned that real silence, chosen silence, is full of power. It means no one else is writing your story anymore. It means you get to decide what fills the space. And what filled mine was clarity. Ownership. Breath. No more noise. No more scripts. Just me. And the life I had built without them. Chapter 24, My New Life. The silence didn't just heal me. It cleared a path. Once I had fully cut the cord, once I had said no, meant it, and followed through, I felt something inside shift. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I wasn't just existing in the space left behind by people who had erased me. I was becoming. That spring, I packed my things into a small U-Haul and left the city that had been both my battlefield and my rebuilding ground. The attic apartment, the late nights spent crying on the floor, the job that helped me climb but still reminded me daily of where I started, I left it all behind, not out of bitterness, but with gratitude. Because it had served its purpose. But I was ready for more. I moved to a new city 2 states away. A place with trees so tall they seemed to scrape the sky, where people smiled at you without needing something, where I could walk down a street without running into memories I didn't ask for. No one knew me there. And for the first time, that was a gift, not a fear. I found a small apartment on the edge of a neighborhood filled with artists and families and second-hand bookstores. It had tall windows and creaky floors and a balcony where I could sit with a cup of coffee and feel sunlight on my skin without anyone telling me who I had to be. I decorated every inch of it with intention. Not one piece of furniture came from my past life. No hand-me-downs. No memory-laced leftovers. Only what I chose. What reflected me. The walls were lined with color, art I'd collected, pieces I'd made, photos with new friends whose love wasn't conditional. People I met at work. At bookstores. At weekend art markets. People who didn't expect me to perform strength like a party trick or fold myself into a version they found easier to love. They didn't know about Alyssa. Or the wedding. Or the stolen future. They just knew me. And that, more than anything, felt like a kind of rebirth. Work was better, too. About 6 months after the move, I got promoted. It wasn't flashy. Not a corner office or some public award. But it was mine. A recognition of the effort, the creativity, the persistence I had poured into every project since day one. I didn't owe it to anyone else. No connections. No favors. Just the quiet power of showing up again and again, even when the world tried to make me disappear. And with that promotion came something even more important, freedom. Financial freedom. Emotional freedom. The ability to choose. To say yes to what I wanted and no to what I didn't. I traveled more. I tried new food. I started journaling again. I bought myself flowers without waiting for someone to gift them. I celebrated birthdays not for the attention, but to mark the fact that I was still here, still growing, still moving forward. One night, I stood on my new balcony, warm mug in hand, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. It hit me then, not like a thunderbolt, but a whisper. They can't take this from me. Not my mother with her cutting words. Not my father with his silence. Not Alyssa with her golden life turned dust. What I had now, the peace, the strength, the joy, I earned it. No one could rewrite that. No one could reach in and steal it like they did before. Because this life was mine. Fully. Freely. Finally. Chapter 25, The Final Word. I used to believe that family was everything. That no matter what happened, no matter how hurt you were, no matter how overlooked, how forgotten, family would always be there. That blood meant loyalty. That unconditional love meant unconditional forgiveness. That if you were just good enough, patient enough, selfless enough, they would eventually see your worth. But I was wrong. Because love without respect. It's not love. It's manipulation. And what I had mistaken for loyalty was really a leash. A tool to keep me tethered to people who never planned to meet me halfway. People who used words like family as a shield against accountability. People who expected my silence, my labor, my pain, and called it love when I handed it over without asking for anything in return. I see it clearly now. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved me for what I did for them. And the moment I stopped doing it, when I finally said, no, they called it betrayal. But it wasn't betrayal. It was liberation. They made their choice a long time ago. They chose Alyssa. They chose her comfort over my education. Her image over my well-being. Her happiness over my health. Her wedding over my future. And they never apologized. Not once. They didn't grieve the relationship when I walked away. They grieved the benefits of having me around. I used to think that made me unlovable. That something was wrong with me, too cold, too proud, too distant. But I know better now. What I am is clear. Clear about my boundaries. Clear about my value. Clear about the fact that no one, gets to take from me and still call it love. I may not have the picture-perfect family. I may never get the apologies. They may never wake up one day and realize the weight of what they did. But I don't need them to. Because I'm not waiting anymore. Not for closure. Not for recognition. Not to be chosen. They chose her. So I chose me. And I will keep choosing me, every single day, for the rest of my life. That's not bitterness. That's not revenge. That's what healing looks like when you finally stop bleeding for people who never learned to hold a bandage. This is my story now. And I get to write the ending.
They lied. They cheated. They betrayed the one person who gave them everything. But guess what? The truth always finds a voice, and here, it screams. If you live for chaos, loyalty gone wrong, and revenge served cold, like this video, drop a comment, and hit subscribe, because on Family Drama Unleashed, we don't forgive, and we never forget. Tap that bell, because the next betrayal, it's already on its way.